lesson we learned from the Lord, the Lamb, the Bibles. Now, I want to introduce you to a word that you may have never heard. Some of you may have heard it before, but it's going to help set the tone for our message today. And that word is exegesis.
All right.
Say that with me. Exegesis.
Exegesis.
Say it again. Exegesis. Now let me tell you what it's not before I tell you what it is. It is not a term that refers to Jesus' ex-wife or ex-girlfriend. Some of y'all don't have no humor. The word exegesis, it's exegesis. Let me spell it for you. E-X-E-G-E-S-I-S. Exegesis. This is a word that I first got introduced to in the year of 1999 when I accepted my call to preach under the leadership of Dr. Walker at the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, where he introduced this word to me to help me to learn how to prepare and better prepare a message to preach.
All right.
He taught us that before you ever try to preach a sermon, you have to exegetically approach the text that you're trying to preach.
All right.
When you perform exegesis, that simply means, Brother Turner, that you are trying to bring to light what is dark about the Scripture.
All right.
It's a Greek word that basically means that you give us the interpretation of what you've read in the Bible. It makes things clear when things are dark. Some of y'all are looking at me strange, so let me give you a modern example of what exegesis is, where we read John 3:16, where it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." Now, if I exegetically approach the text, I simply bring to light that Jesus was telling Nicodemus that night when he came to a night school lesson, that Jesus was trying to let him know that I'm the Son of God, that I've been sent here to save souls, and you can't get to heaven unless you come through me.
All right.
And he said, you must be born again, and your second birth is not an fleshy birth, but it's a spiritual birth. He said, because that which is flesh is flesh, and that which is spirit is spirit. Exegetically, he's saying you can't get to heaven unless you get a spiritual rebirth.
All right.
I have just given you an exegetical example of what Jesus has said.
All right.
But when I was reading this book of John and studying, I subscribed to one of the commentarians of the Scriptures by the name of G. Campbell Morgan, who has an awesome, brilliant mind when it comes to looking at the Scriptures. He says that when you read the book of John, baby, he said John paints a picture about Jesus that can absolutely blow your mind.
All right.
True enough, John is like the other three gospel writers, for he paints a picture of who Jesus is. But he's not like Matthew, Mark, and Luke, because they are considered to be the synoptic gospels. Synoptic meaning that they see the life and ministry of Jesus somewhat the same way.
All right.
And some of the things that you see happening in Matthew, you see it in Mark. Some of the things you see happening in Mark, you see it in Luke. But some of the things you see in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you do not see it in John. And he says here, y'all, that the synoptic gospels paint a picture of Jesus that we can see and we need to know. But when we read about Jesus in John, John gives us the fulfillment of who Jesus really is. He says Matthew tells us that Jesus is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He's the King of the Jews. Mark tells us that he's a servant. He says Luke tells us that he's like you and I. He was a man. But in John, Jesus is shown by John as God and God alone. Because John opens up his gospel by saying, in the beginning was the Word. Oh, y'all, I wish I had some Bible. And the Word was God. And the Word was with God. And he was in the beginning with God. And all things were made through him. And without him was nothing made that was made.
All right.
He gives us a picture that he's not just a king. He's not just a servant. He's not just a man. But he's God. So somebody needs to be aware of that today, that Jesus that we serve is not just some average Joe. He's not just some regular fella. He's not just some fella that we might need to figure out about. But the fact of the matter is, when you come here Sunday after Sunday and Wednesday after Wednesday, you need to know and be excited about the fact that the Jesus that we serve is not just a mere man, but he's God, and God all by himself. Morgan says this, y'all. This is what blows my mind. That in John, and I rush to the text, that he does not just paint a picture of Jesus that he's God. But this word exegesis is explained in the efforts of the writer. Watch this. That Jesus is the exegesis of God.
All right.
Let me say that again. That Jesus is the exegesis of God.
All right.
He is the revelation and the interpretation of who God really is.
All right.
And he says that God sent himself and wrapped himself up in the form of a fleshy man. That we might be able to put our hands on him and our hearts in him. Because man, ever since the beginning of time, are y'all listening? Have been trying to get a grip and a grasp on who God is. Let me say that again. God, here it is, y'all. God exegetically expressed himself in the form of a man named Jesus, so that we can get a picture